Hello, welcome and good morning to the Porsche 911 GT3 Touring. This week I've got a problem with this car. It has a fault and we're going to have to try and fix it. So I thought I'd take you along. We'll go through and discover together exactly why this car has got an oil pressure management fault, why it's got an engine control fault, and hopefully how to fix it. So if that sounds like your special kind of vodka, let's get on with it. Well, hello and good morning from the Porsche 911 GT3 Touring. Porsche 911s are known for their reliability and unburstability, but strangely and recently I took this car for a drive and it came up with a couple of faults. In fact, I'm getting ahead of myself. The first thing I noticed is that suddenly it was unwilling to rev. I would put my foot down and it would very slowly climb up the rev gauge. There really was no urgency. And to be honest, the engine was sounding a lot lumpier, a lot less healthy than it normally was. So that all tied into this whole, the engine was being held back by the electronics. So I could tell something was wrong, and what was happening is it had sort of gone into some kind of limp mode. The engine was protecting itself, so clearly something was wrong with the management system. And then, hey presto, a few minutes later, I got an oil pressure measurement fault come up. A fairly scary yellow warning sign. And as I then looked at the oil pressure, yep, there you go, the gauge wasn't working. Then, a few minutes later from that, it suddenly came up with the scarier engine control fault. Now, that was really, really scary, and I was almost ready to pull over, but I did notice that it says consult dealer, but driving is permitted. So what that tells me is that it's possibly not something wrong with the engine, it's just a sensor or two sensors which have gone. It could be that the oil sensor goes and that automatically means that the engine one goes as well, but either way, when you've got a GT3 Touring, you don't really want to take any chances. I should also point out that it's put the master engine warning yellow light on the main dials, and that is the most scary sight you can ever see if you're a Porsche owner. People have made Halloween pumpkins depicting that symbol, and it's something you really don't want to see. I've also noticed it doesn't want you to put the handbrake on, so whether that's because it thinks it doesn't want to leave it stuck on in the event that something seizes, and also if you press the sport button, you don't really get any of the sport benefits either. Obviously I needed to book it into a dealer as soon as possible, and whilst I would normally take the car to the Porsche Centre in Swindon that I've been developing a relationship with, because it's so far away from me and because I didn't really know what's going on with this car, I thought it was more prudent to book it into the closest dealer that I had, and in this case that is the new facility at Porsche Chapelgate in just on the outskirts of Ferndown near Bournemouth. And so I called them up, and unfortunately it has taken 3 weeks to get the car in. 3 weeks, so I couldn't drive it at all without being worried about what I was doing to the car. So I've been without the GT3 Touring for 3 weeks waiting for this appointment. But today, finally, I am taking my Touring to the Porsche dealer to get it diagnosed and fixed. And perhaps if you've got a GT3 and yours starts doing this as well, you can watch this video and you'll find out exactly what it is, because by the time that we have finished this episode, ladies and gentlemen, we will know what the problem is and it will have been fixed, and I will be driving this car to the full extent of its abilities once again. And I've arrived at Porsche Bournemouth, I've dropped off the car, and now it's the wait to find out exactly what's wrong with it. So here I am, I'm back at Porsche Centre Bournemouth. It's 3 months later. Honestly, I'd almost forgotten that I even owned the car, but finally it's ready. And to be honest, it's been quite a journey. A lot of false starts. Unfortunately, a lot of the work was delayed because of a massive number of Taycans that needed to be repaired or fixed or updated. So that set us back quite a bit, but finally I'm here to pick up the car. Why has it taken so long? Well, frankly, viewers, you will not believe what the problem was. I thought it was mainly a software update, but it turned out to be a lot more serious than that, and a problem which is increasingly heard of these days. And here it is, back at last, fully fixed, perfectly repaired. What was the problem? Well, incredibly, it was a mouse nest on top of the engine. Yes, that's right. In possibly the first of its kind, a GT3 Touring had a mouse climb onto the top of the engine, build up a mass of twigs and leaves and general detritus, and then, just for good measure, decided to chew and strip and eat all of the wiring looms and anything else that it could get its hand on. And if you can't believe what a mouse will do to an engine, have a look at this. As you can see, it's an enormous bundle of leaves and twigs. The mouse was safely nestled down inside there and having a lovely time chewing everything that it can find. It did a hell of a lot of damage, and unfortunately it meant that not only did we have to remove all of the air boxes and take away part of the engine to find the actual mouse nest, we then had to actually remove the entire engine, take it out and replace the wiring loom and a load of other ancillary parts. I'll put the full parts list up on the screen so you can see what was done, but it was a big job, and unfortunately because of the Taycan intervention it's taken a lot longer than I expected. As you can see, we've got some pictures here. The whole engine had to be removed in order for them to replace all of the components of it and replace them. There's obviously a bit of time to get those components in, but the guys at the service centre here at Porsche Bournemouth have done a cracking job tidying it up, fixing it all, putting it all back together. So at least now I get to drive my beloved GT3 Touring again and have some fun this year. But it was looking touch and go for a while. And the cost of all this work, well folks, I'm afraid you're simply not going to believe it, because a little mouse in an engine, the full cost of this work after 3 months is £5,992. £6,000 because of a fucking mouse. Unbelievable. And the car had only been parked up outside for a couple of days, and this initiated it, and from then it obviously grew and grew and grew. Once the mouse gets in, they can cause a hell of a lot of damage, and this bill is enormous. It's not helped, of course, by the fact that it's £170 an hour labour rates, and that it was going to take 22.5 hours to do the work. So there you go. Now you know exactly why my GT3 Touring broke, what was wrong with it and how it was fixed, and painfully how much it cost to repair. Thanks for watching this episode. If you like what I'm doing on The Car Guys, please subscribe, leave comments and likes. There'll be another episode next week.